From 1878 to 1968, there were 71 lake captains that called Bayview, Wisconsin, on the shore of Lake Michigan, their home. While they lived here, they captained 195 different ships, from tugboats to schooners to steamships, in voyages that took them to every one of the Great Lakes. Join us now for another episode of Bayview, Town of Lake Captains, where we explore not only these captains, but also their ships, their homes, their families, and their lifetime of sailing adventures on the Great Lakes.
Well, folks, I hope you can see me through the afternoon sun here. Welcome to another episode of Bayview Town of Lake Captains, sponsored by the Historic Bayview Lake Captains Society. Now today I'm up again in the northwest part of Bayview, where the majority of the lake captains lived. Of the 71 lake captains lived over here. And today, standing in front of Captain Jonas Hansen's house. Now you may recognize that name from a previous episode on Hans Hansen, who was his older brother. They both immigrated from Norway in 1875. Jonas was born in 1857, quite a ways back, but he came over to America, straight to northern Wisconsin at age 18, up in Hickston, Wisconsin, and then moved down to Milwaukee, and then over to Bayview to this house. He moved in here in 1891 and stayed for 10 years. And before that was in Walker's Point, sailing ships exclusively for Jonas Hansen. A couple schooners, possibly sailing for his brother Jonas, don't know. But he gets here, and he's a sailor for 4 years, and for 5 years, and a confirmed captain for 5 years. May have been a captain during those first 5 years. I don't know that. And the reason is because in those days, captains referred to themselves as sailors, seamen, pilots is another one. So he could have been a lake captain during the first 5 years of the 10 he lived here, but for certain we have documented he was captain of the schooner-barge Aberdeen while he lived here. That name you may recognize from a previous episode. That was captained by Thomas Leask of the Leask brothers fame. So Jonas Hansen, another Norwegian. We have several of them here that immigrated. The majority of Bayview's lake captains were immigrants, exclusively from Northern Europe, Norway, Sweden, England, Scotland. Got one from Denmark. So that's it for Jonas Hansen. More sail. And if you look at, I think I mentioned this in a previous video, but if you look at the progression of time here in Bayview and match it up with the lake captains, where they lived during that time, and the ships that they captained during that time, what you discover is this is the earliest part in terms of where Bayview lake captains lived. And not only are the homes older than the ones that they live in later, but there's more sailing ships that they captained while they were up here because it was earlier. And then slowly steam eclipsed sail as time moves on. And as time moves on, you notice you notice a movement of the captains from this area where the majority were concentrated. Over time, they move east towards the lake. Most of the captains there down by the lake by then were steamship captains. So Jonas Hansen, brother of Hans, another Bayview lake captain over here on Aldrich Street this time. So happy to bring it to you. Hope you enjoy the episode with Simon Stanhope coming up. And remember, hats off to our Bayview lake captains. Do I get like a sheen off of my dome here with the sun? All right, take care. I'll see you next time. Bye-bye.
Welcome to another installment of Bayview, Town of Lake Captains, where we discuss the lives of the 71 different lake captains that once lived in Bayview, Wisconsin, during the late 19th and early 20th centuries, in the age of sail and steam. This discussion will include their ships, their homes, their families, and their lifetime of sailing adventures on the Great Lakes. Here is the map of Lake Captain's homes in Bayview, to show you where this episode takes place. Its location focuses primarily on the large green arrow. Today we will be discussing the life of Captain Jonas Hansen, who was born in Norway. He likely grew up as a sailor and continued in this profession after he immigrated with his family to the US in 1875 at age 18. He initially lived in Milwaukee, where he was a schooner owner, and then later moved to Bayview, where he owned and captained his own schooner and then a schooner-barge for another owner for 10 years. Jonas Hansen then left the sailing profession after 20 years on the Great Lakes to work as a carpenter in Bayview's rolling mill. He remained in this position for 20 years, living in several different homes in and around today's South Shore Park. Captain Charles Jonas Hansen was born in 1857 in Norway. He went by his middle name Jonas. One of 6 children, 5 boys and 1 girl, he immigrated to the USA with his parents and siblings in 1875, at age 18, settling in Hickston, Wisconsin, about 40 miles southeast of Eau Claire in northwest Wisconsin. One of his siblings was his older brother Hans, who also became a Bayview Lake captain and is discussed in a separate episode on this channel. Not much is known about Jonas during his early years in Norway. However, the fact that he appears in Milwaukee working as a sailor 8 years after immigrating makes it likely that both he and older brother Hans had been working as sailors in Norway since their early teens, as was the custom at the time. Sometime between 1881 and 1883, Jonas Hansen moved from Hickston, Wisconsin to Milwaukee and was working as a, quote, sailor, unquote. He settled in the 12th Ward and probably lived there until he moved to Bayview, though his whereabouts between 1884 and 1890 are unknown. His ship or ships during this time and his position on board are unknown. He did buy the schooner Z.G. Simmons on 16th March 1890, but he is never confirmed as captain. He is also connected, in an unknown way, with the schooner Norman, possibly his first ship in Milwaukee, his position aboard unknown. In 1891, Jonas moved to Bayview, remaining there for the rest of his life. He lived in several different houses during his early years in Bayview, the first of which was 2149 South Aldrich Street. His positions held while living here were 1891 to 94 sailor and 1895 to 1900 lake captain. His ships during this period on South Aldrich Street were the schooner C. Harrison, March 1891, to probable September 1895, though he is not confirmed as captain, just as co-owner and then sole owner, and captain of the schooner-barge Aberdeen, 30th of October 1895, 17th July 1899, and probable 1900. The only ship he is confirmed as being captain of for his entire time in Bayview is the Aberdeen. Note fellow Bayview Lake Captain Thomas Leask would also command the Aberdeen from 1902 to 05 and probably 1906. Thomas Leask has a separate episode dedicated to him on this channel. In 1901, it appears Jonas Hansen left the sailing profession to begin working as a carpenter in the Bayview rolling mill, since there are no maritime records at all for him after 1900. He is officially confirmed as a carpenter at the mill in 1910, but it likely began in 1901. It matches up with him moving in 1901 to 08 into a story-and-a-half frame house near and around the site of the current public park building on the lakeside of South Shore Drive as it goes through South Shore Park. This house was torn down in August 1909. Now working permanently as a carpenter at the mill, Jonas then moved to several other homes around the South Shore Park area as follows. 1910, 2976 South Delaware Avenue. 1911 to 1920, between 2744 and 2757 South Shore Drive, just north of South Shore Park. And finally, 2811 South Delaware Avenue, where he died in 1927. It's unknown when he moved here from his former home on South Shore Drive. Captain Jonas Hansen married wife Louise in 1885. She too had immigrated from Norway. They had no children. He died on 4th December 1927, and wife Louise 13 years later in 1940. They are buried together at Forest Home Cemetery. Thanks for watching. This photograph isn't about Bayview or its lake captains, but it's from the same era of Great Lakes maritime history. We thought we'd close with it for enjoyment, as it captures the spirit of the era. If you'd like to read more details about Captain Jonas Hansen, as well as the sources for the information contained in today's video, you can find these and more in the book Bayview, Town of Lake Captains, for sale now, by individual volumes on both Amazon.com and HenschelHouseBooks.com. All proceeds from book sales go to support various maritime history projects related to Bayview's lake captains. One of these is a plaque and marker with the captains' names and addresses on it as part of the creation of the Bayview Lake Captains Historic District, which will be the first of its kind in America. If you would like to contribute to support these projects, to include this and other markers honouring Bayview's lake captains, with 100% of all donations and contributions in all forms going to support them, please consider contributing to us through the listings found on our website under the Contribute button. Note, we are not a 501c3, so contributions are not tax-deductible. If, for some reason, we are unable to secure these markers, then all funds donated to this site will be given as a cash donation to the museum ship SS City of Milwaukee in Manistee, Michigan. This is the only surviving intact ship that was once captained by a Bayview Lake captain, and in its case was captained by at least 2, and likely 3, totaling over 20 years between them. Finally, we also have free self-guided walking tours of Bayview's 71 lake captains' homes, using only your phone. It's simple and easy. Just go to our website shown here, find the item on the menu bar at the upper left named Free Self-Guided Walking Tours, and then scroll down to find the map with instructions. Zoom in by street. When you find a captain's house you're interested in, click on it and details appear on the right, along with a link to the YouTube episode from this channel that provides the biography of the captain that lived there. You can also read about his sailing adventures while living in that particular house by going to the website menu item, Sailing Adventures. These are also included on our website blog. It's free, fun, and available anytime you're out walking. Just bring along your phone. I'm Simon Stanhope, narrator for these episodes. Join us again soon for the next chapter of Bayview, Town of Lake Captains.